Okay, what's up guys? I just want to do a quick video talking about common issues when traveling and trading, since I just finished 6 months of traveling and trading abroad in Southeast Asia. 6 countries in 6 months. So let's go through some common issues that I've found while traveling and trading. So if you do decide to be a little bit of a digital nomad, you can kind of anticipate some of the challenges that you may face by watching this video. So number one is obviously the latency. A lot of questions I got about latency. Is there even latency? What is latency? And is it going to impact my trading? So if you are a hyper scalper, yes, it is very noticeable, the latency, and it's going to influence your trading a bit. But I believe that we can all adapt to new situations, to new challenges that do affect our trading. The latency isn't that bad. So the first thing is latency. I get a lot of questions about latency and what it is. Is it going to impact my trading? Latency is just the amount of time it takes to send an order to the exchange or to your brokerage to get your shares filled and then have it reflect back on your platform. So the latency from Southeast Asia is around 200 to 200 milliseconds. So that is about a quarter of a second. So sending an order there and back will take about a half a second if there's no packet loss. If there's packet loss and there's some issues with the order being sent, it may take longer, maybe up to 1 second or to a second and a half to get filled. So yeah, if you're a hyper scalper, that can definitely influence your trading. So you want to be prepared for that because it is noticeable, but you can adapt to it. You can definitely adapt to it. I think over time you'll be able to kind of use that to your advantage. I've actually had a lot of times where that latency actually worked in my advantage because when I'm trying to buy a dip and I buy a dip and let's say I'm a little bit too early on the dip and the price goes down even lower, because of my latency, even though I hit the price at this certain price, because of the latency, I didn't get filled until price dropped even further. And I was actually getting in on the low, on literally the low print on the tape on a dip. So in a lot of cases, it does work in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't, but I'd say just as many times that it doesn't work in my favor, it does work in my favor. So I actually can kind of use that to my advantage. So I've been focusing a lot more on dips because of the latency, because on dips, if I'm a little early, it actually is a lot more forgiving, because if the price goes down more, I'm getting filled at the low of the candle. So, and then also if I'm catching like a breakout, another thing is, or if I'm selling a breakout, or if I'm selling as the price is moving up, if I'm selling early, if I'm selling too early, and I sell at, let's say, $1.50, but then price jumps to $1.55, if I hit $1.50 as it's moving to 155, a lot of times that latency is going to get me filled at the top at 155. So yeah, you can kind of actually use it to your advantage. Over time, you're going to know how to kind of intuitively use that to work for you rather than against you. But I would say that the latency hasn't really caused me to lose a lot of money, because there's a lot of times that it caused me to actually make money, actually make a lot of money too. Trades where I would previously be getting filled at a certain price, now I'm getting filled even at a better price. And so yeah, that can actually, yeah, it's actually, in some ways it works for you, which is actually really interesting. So not necessarily latency, in all cases it's bad, but it will take you some time to adapt. It's not going to happen in a few days. It may take you a week, it may take you 2 weeks to really adapt to the latency and know when to hit the buy and the sell button so it works for you. So just be prepared for that. But yeah, you can absolutely adapt. I know several traders here in Southeast Asia that are hyper scalping, and they're pulling out some really good money. So it is completely possible to do this from Southeast Asia, as long as you have good internet You definitely need an Ethernet cable. I will do a separate video on the equipment that I have, but you're definitely going to want an Ethernet cable to bring along with you, a Cat 6 or better, and so you can get some good internet if you can plug in. But yeah, you're going to want really good internet. I would say minimum, we can get into the Wi-Fi speed. I look for a minimum of 100 megabits per second upload and download, which you can find in most places. Some places you're not going to find, so you're going to need to look around for local cafes where you could work. But I like to you can use Google Fiber Internet Speed or Ookla, and you want to change the server when you're checking your server speed or your Wi-Fi speed. You want to change your server on Google Fiber Internet Speed or Ookla to the local server that's matching the internet service provider. So that'll give you the correct internet speed. Sometimes if you're from, like for me, like when I automatically pull up Ookla, it pulls up the New York server, and so that's not going to give me the correct speeds of the Wi-Fi router. It's just going to give me the speed from where I'm at currently to New York, which is usually where I'm automatically getting populated in Ookla. So it'll have a lot more latency, and that's going to show you the latency from here until New York. So I guess you could use that for more information. But yeah, I like to look for, you want to have low ping to the local server, which is why you want to change the server location from on Ookla or Google Fiber to the local internet, because then it'll show you the ping, because you don't want high ping just to your local server. If it's to your local server, you want one ping. It should be really quick. If it's not, then it's probably bad Wi-Fi, or you need to use an Ethernet cable. But again, not every time. If you're in a hotel, you're not going to be able to really use an Ethernet cable in most cases. Sometimes I do have an Ethernet plug and like a Wi-Fi router in the hotel room, but a lot of times they don't. They have like a public Wi-Fi. So that's also something to do, to keep in mind. I'm going to rank the best countries with the best Wi-Fi that I found from, I would say, 6 countries. So number 1 would be Vietnam. Had the best Wi-Fi, fiber internet in all of the main cities of Saigon, Vietnam, Da Nang, and Hanoi. I had never had one problem with internet speed. It's been so fast everywhere I go. It seems to be a standard for fiber internet, pulling at least 250, 300 megabits per second, which is plenty for trading. A close second is going to be Thailand. Thailand definitely also has a lot of fiber for their standard, but I didn't find it as commonly as fast as Vietnam. I found maybe some hotels and stuff to be maybe a little bit slower, but still very, very fast. And if you do your research in Thailand, there's plenty of places. It could have just been the hotels or hostels that I stayed at that had a little bit slower Wi-Fi, but you can easily find a cafe or an Airbnb, if you do your research, that has fiber internet. You're not going to have a problem. So that's why I put it as a close second. Thailand has really good internet in Bangkok, Pattaya, and Chiang Mai. Is going to be your best internet speed. You can. When I went to the islands, in the south of Thailand, and yeah, the internet was crap on the islands. So I went to Koh Tao, and the internet was pretty bad, like 50 megabits per second or less. I was trading in the jungles, and I remember like every few seconds like slapping a mosquito on my arm. I was worried about getting like malaria or something. I wouldn't recommend trading from the islands because the hostels and the hotels aren't made for like sitting indoors. Everything is sort of like an outdoor sort of vibe, where like the lounge area is outside. You have a pool or you have a view of the ocean and stuff. It's not really made, like those hotels there are not really made for like an indoor air conditioned working space. So it's going to be really hard to find that. A lot of the times, like the workspaces are outdoors, no air conditioning, and with your whole computer setup. That's another thing, with your whole computer setup, you want to be in a place where it has air conditioning, because when you're trading, a lot of times your computer can get really hot, especially if there's no air conditioning, and that's going to damage your computer. There's been a few times where my computer got so freaking hot because I was trading with no air conditioning, And I literally think that I shaved off a year or 2 years of the lifespan of this computer because of how hot it got. I didn't get any errors or any like issues with the computer like shutting down because it overheated, but when I touched it in those specific times when I was trading with no air conditioning, it was just so hot. It was so freaking hot. But if you need to, you want to tilt your computer up a little bit like this. You want to tilt your computer up like on top of something, like put under something underneath there, so you can get a little bit more airflow. But yeah, you want to find something that has air conditioning. You don't want to be trading outside. Like I know like videos online, like, oh yeah, trade from the beach. You can just chill. You know, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. That is so dangerous for your equipment. You got sand. Sand can get in your computer. It's going to be hot as balls. Your computer is definitely going to overheat if you're sitting in the sun or outside where it's brutally hot in Southeast Asia. That's just a marketing tactic. That's not, you don't actually want to do that. It's just a marketing tactic to kind of show off. But also like people in Bali, you know, trading from the beach and stuff, like, that's not a good idea. Not a good idea. I didn't go to Bali, but when I was in Indonesia, Wi-Fi was really bad, really bad. I've been to so many hotels, so many cafes, hostels, everything. I couldn't find anything over. I mean, Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, everywhere, KFC. Nowhere had internet over 100 megabits per second. So I wouldn't recommend Indonesia for traders. I mean, the internet is only suitable for just like your basic kind of online browsing. Like, I mean, if you have a business that's like drop shipping or like a business that's like Amazon selling or just like website design or like maybe programming, then that's fine, which I can see why people are boasting Bali, Indonesia. But Bali, Indonesia or Jakarta, Indonesia is not going to be good Wi-Fi for traders. They just don't have the capabilities to do what we're doing with hyper scalping. Maybe it'll work with swing trading since it's not as active, but I wouldn't recommend Indonesia. That's actually number 6 on my list for the ranking of my best Wi-Fi. Number 3, 4, and 5. Number 3 is Malaysia. Malaysia, very kind of like a first world city in like a third world area, like the only first world city in the area. Well, they have Singapore as well, but those are the Singapore and Malaysia. Singapore and Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia are like the 2 kind of first world cities in Southeast Asia. Currently, I'm sure these other cities will continue to grow, but for now, Kuala Lumpur and Singapore are the cleanest cities I've ever seen. Actually, I haven't been to Singapore yet, but with pictures, it's probably even nicer than Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. But Kuala Lumpur, yeah, first world city in Southeast Asia, and very clean, very nice. The internet is good. You're not going to have a problem finding good internet. That's a close third as well. But you definitely want to do your research with finding a good place with good internet. It's not as like with Vietnam, I could just trust anywhere I go that's just going to have good internet. Every cafe, every hotel, I don't really need to do research. I know that everything's fast. But Thailand and Malaysia, you're going to want to do research with where they have fiber internet that's over like 200, 250, 300 megabits per second. But yeah, you shouldn't have much of a problem in Thailand or Malaysia. Philippines, that's where you want to do a lot more research. Because, yeah, I mean, not every place is going to have fiber internet. And when people say, like, I noticed when people say, like, on Airbnb, like, you'll see them say, like, oh, has good internet, very fast internet, high-speed internet. And then you go and you message the landlord, okay, what's the internet speed? They say 20 megabits per second. That's their fast internet. That's what they mean by fast internet. It means that you can actually load an email. Fast internet does not mean what we think fast internet means, which is 200 megabits, 300 megabits per second or more, a gigabyte of internet. You know, so you're definitely going to want to do research in Philippines if you do move there, but you will be able to find fiber internet if you do your research with hotels, hostels, or Airbnbs. And if you do move there as an expat, they do have internet providers that do a gigabyte of fiber. As long as the apartment building can have it wired. That's the only issue you'd have. Cambodia, So Philippines is still good, but yeah, number 4. Cambodia, number 5. Cambodia, I didn't really find good internet many places. It's a little bit harder to find, similar with Indonesia. But I was able to get by with trading. But internet was like around 100 megabits per second to 150, which is just enough, maybe just enough. I did have some issues with trading there. So yeah, Cambodia and Indonesia, a little bit harder to trade from. So just be prepared for that. Doesn't mean you shouldn't visit, but you should definitely be prepared that you may not be able to trade as well as those other countries that I named in the top 3 or 4. But I definitely had some great experiences in Cambodia and Indonesia. That is worth the sacrifice with trading. You know, not everything in your life should be revolved around trading. Not every decision should be revolved around trading. A lot of great experiences in Cambodia and Indonesia. But those are my rankings of best Wi-Fi. Obviously, yeah, the higher the better you can get. So yeah, well, that's with Wi-Fi. With firewall blocks, you also want to, when you go to visit, a lot of times before I book a hotel, I go there if I can and try to test the internet speed and log into my trading platform, because sometimes the Wi-Fi there blocks your Charles Schwab or Thinkorswim platform. So I like to check to make sure I can log in. Sometimes the firewall blocks. And in Indonesia, they have, the whole country has Robinhood blocked. Robinhood is banned in Indonesia. It's not available. And Reddit is banned. You can't use Reddit. So that's where it's good. Like if you need to log into those sites, if you're trading or managing something on Robinhood, you can use a VPN. But yeah, I like to check firewall blocks. There's sometimes, like, the Wi-Fi does have a firewall block on Charles Schwab. That's not be able to controlled by you. It's controlled by whoever set up the Wi-Fi. So that, yeah, the firewall block, you want to go and check to see if you can log in. A lot of the times I would book one night. You book one night at a hotel, book one night at a hostel. Just see if it's good, if you can. This is if you can't check the speed. If you can't check the speed and you can't check if you log in, I book one night and see if I can log in and see if I can trade. And then if it checks all my boxes and I can trade, then I go ahead and book like a longer stay. So that's how I usually do work around that with firewall blocks. You may run into that. I did find some places did have a firewall block on Charles Schwab, and Thinkorswim. And next is going to be universal plugs. So universal plugs, some plugs are different. In Indonesia, they had the European plugs. So you're going to want to buy a universal plug. I think also in Japan is a different plug as well. China may be a different plug. So if you're traveling in those countries. But Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Cambodia, I did not have any issues with using just the regular standard, what do you call it? Like the standard American plug thing. Yeah, these 2 prongs, like this thing, like I didn't have any issues using this anywhere I went with those 5 countries. Only in Indonesia they use those European plugs, so you will need to get an adapter. But it's good to have an adapter anyways, because if you're trading in a public space, let's say if you're in a cafe, you may not have multiple plugs open, and if you need multiple plugs for your second monitor or for anything else to charge, you will want to have an adapter as well, so that you can have, other things to plug into the wall. So, because other people are working there as well, they may need to use the plugs. So, it's good to get an adapter, a universal plug adapter. That's one thing. And then the last thing I'm going to warn you about, common issue, was quiet spaces. If you're trading in a cafe, it's very common, to have music going on. People are talking. Some people may even come up and curious about what you're doing and see if you can teach them how to do that. But man, like, while I love talking about trading and getting people excited about potentially trading, man, it's not easy. It's not easy to talk and engage with people while you're focusing on scalping on the 1 minute chart or the 10-minute chart or the 10-second chart. So yeah, while you're working, it's really hard to not be distracted by all these other things. People are going to be coming up to you, watching you, like talking to you, like, oh, what are you doing? What is this? Are you trading crypto, trading stocks? What are you doing? So that may get annoying. So I try to find places in the corner where like nobody can see my screen for that reason, so people don't come up to me. But yeah, you may find it a little bit difficult to find quiet spaces if you're doing public trading in cafes and stuff. And in hostels, if you're in a hostel or a hotel and you're in a lounge area, again, you may have issues with finding quiet spaces. But those are my 5 common issues when traveling and trading abroad. Hopefully you got some information on this. If you do plan on doing a digital nomad sort of lifestyle for a bit with trading, it can be done. It can definitely be done. But you have to be prepared for these challenges on the road. And again, the what do you call it? The time zone difference is 11 hours. I'm 11 hours ahead of New York time until daylight savings. So when daylight savings and you fall back, New York falls back an hour. That will be now, I'll be 12 hours ahead. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You'll be trading at night here in Southeast Asia. So hopefully you guys got some sort of value out of that. If you did, hit the like, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, see ya.